Next up we have a trilogy of videos on the Fatal Fury 2 series, with this one covering just the original, like how I covered the arcade run of Street Fighter 2, but with one less video. The game takes place a year after the first game, after Terry Bogard kicked Geese Howard from the top of his tower to his death. The King of Fighters tournament suddenly has a new sponsor who has expanded the tournament's scope. Rather than simply taking place across Southtown, the tournament is now worldwide, attracting many new fighters from around the world with all their own reasons for competing. As for gameplay, there's been some changes from the first game. First thing to bring up is that the 2-on-1 co-op mode has been removed, but as for changes people will actually think about, the buttons have been changed. The dedicated grab button has been removed and we now have 4 attack buttons, quick and strong punches and kicks. The 2-lane system from the first game also returns, with a larger percentage of stages now supporting it. And finally, there's the addition of these super special moves, which require you to be close to death, but can then be used infinitely as long as you can consistently pull off the input. All these changes, along with the game being faster and more responsive, make this game an improvement over the first game already. Another improvement is the playable roster. The first game only let you play as the 3 main characters and left a further 8 unplayable. This game instead goes the vanilla Street Fighter 2 approach, 8 playable characters and 4 unplayable bosses. But one thing SF2 didn't have was the ability to choose your first AI opponent. I like this because it means if there's one character the patented SNK bastard AI really makes you struggle with, you can make sure you get them out of the way first while they're set to be their weakest. This meant I never had to deal with a Mai as the 8th opponent. But yes, the AI in this game is absurd, and after my first playthrough as Terry, I reduced the AI to level 1. It's still very hard, it's just I went from 2-hour playthroughs to 1-hour playthroughs. Another thing I hinted at in my previous video is that I will be using the Arcade Archive suspend save option. This is because to get the characters' endings in this game, you have to finish the entire game without losing. And I am not spending days restarting until I get a lucky playthrough for all 8 characters, not against SNK AI. It was already bad enough I beat the game once as Terry without knowing this and had to do another playthrough just for its ending. So let's get into these characters and let's check in on our returning cast, starting with Terry Bogard. After avenging his adoptive father and killing Geese a year earlier, Terry receives an invitation to this new tournament. He brings you up to Richard Meyer in the Pow Pow Cafe and learns that Richard also received one. Terry assumes that Andy and Joe must have also got one and decides to take part with the intention of finding out who this mysterious tournament organiser is. Terry retains his entire moveset from the first game: Power Wave with quarter circle forward and punch, Burning Knuckle with quarter circle back and punch, Rising Tackle with charge down up and punch, Crack Shoot with quarter circle back, up back and kick. His super special move is Power Geyser with quarter circle back, down back, forward and quick kick and strong punch together. I find Terry more fun in general due to the more responsive gameplay than the first game, along with the fact his power waves no longer take 3 weeks to come out. I just think in terms of fun, he's a little outclassed by others we'll be talking about soon. Terry finally gets his own stage and his own character theme instead of sharing the reused Street Smart theme the main characters had in the original. His stage has him fighting on a train cart moving across the desert, also passing Mount Rushmore. Like the first game, the stage has changed time of day between rounds. This stage is alright. I mainly just like the fact we have the station there for just a few seconds at the start, a detail they didn't need to include, but it's appreciated. Although I've gotta say, Curry Kinton is just an okay theme. Of the Terry themes I can think of, I much prefer Big Shot and 11th Street. Moving on, let's check back in on his brother, Andy Bogard. Having received closure from Geese's death, Andy returns to Japan and continued training for the next year until the invitation for this new tournament got him to take part. Just like Terry, Andy kept his entire moveset. He Shoken with quarter circle back and punch, Zaneiken with down back forward and punch, Shoryudan with quarter circle forward and punch, Kuhadan with charge down back up forward and kick. His super special move is Icho Repadan with charge down, quarter circle forward and both kicks. Yeah, if a super special move is done against an immobile player too, that's just because I couldn't pull it off against the AI. I still enjoyed Andy decently enough considering my struggles with charge moves, and I still performed better than I did with Terry, but I didn't have anywhere near the success I had with him playing the first game. No first try final boss defeats for me. I'm not entirely sure why Andy's stage is based in Italy. My only guess is because he's American, but Terry already had the America stage, and he spent a large amount of his life in Japan, but there are already 2 Japanese characters on the roster. Although in that case I don't see why there couldn't be 2 US based stages, but regardless, I do like this stage. Compared to Terry's, it's a similar idea with it being on a moving vehicle, but this one has so much more to look at. You could even see Terry in the background at one point. I also like his new theme music, Pasta, much more than Terry's theme too. So to round off the trio, next I'll look at Joe Higashi. During the first game's tournament, Joe defeated his rival Hua Jai, and the two made peace and became friends. He then went back into training after the tournament's conclusion. A year later he gets his invitation, but also learns that Hua Jai has been badly beaten in a fight with the tournament organiser, so Joe enters to avenge him. Once again Joe's entire moveset returns. Hurricane up with half circle, back to forward and punch. Slash kick with charge down back, up forward and kick. Tiger kick with quarter circle forward, up forward and kick. Back arrest came by rapidly pressing punch. His super special move is screw upper, forward, quarter circle back to down, down forward, quick punch and quick kick. Although my recording didn't pick up most projectiles, so it just looks like he's doing nothing. Once again Joe ends up being the one out of the main three I struggle with playing as the most. I just find the majority of his moves too much of the pain to pull off, especially needing a half circle for his main projectile. For me his most useful move was his sliding kick when crouching. One thing I do like about Joe in this game is his ties to Hua Jai. Since 1991, Hua Jai has only made one more appearance as a fighter in a game, and that was 20 years later. He'll never be a fighter in the Fatal Fury series again, but he has a continued presence through his friendship with Joe, which allows him to make many cameos. Not to be mocked like he's a 3D Mortal Kombat character, just to show that he's still around, not forgotten just because he doesn't show up in games anymore. It's the same with Richard and the Pow Pow Cafe being a continued presence. Richard's only appearance as a fighter after the first game is in one alternate timeline spin-off, but he continues to keep a presence long past this series and well into the King of Fighters. Now that I think about it, SNK fighting game characters are probably the best treated overall that I can think of by their developers and writers. Very few get left behind completely with no mention, or treated spitefully, even those that haven't been playable in nearly 30 years. Like, we're not gonna get an intro in KOF 16 or whatever where Ryo Sakazaki just drops John Crawley's decapitated head in a bag on the ground or something. But back to Joe. His stage is fine, I have no strong feelings about it. At the very least, him getting a stage in Thailand makes far more sense than Andy getting one in Italy. I will say that I'm not a big fan of his theme though. Of all the music tracks to hear on repeat thanks to repeated losses, this one got on my nerves far more than any other. To finish up the first half of the playable cast, it's the final returning character, Big Bear. Big Bear is Raiden from the first game. After being defeated in the first game, he became friends with the main trio. This led to him turning face, dropping his mask and wrestling under a new name. He's just here because he got invited. For moves he has his giant bomb with charge down back, forward and punch. Then there's his super drop kick done by holding strong kick for a ridiculous 8 seconds. His super special move, Fire Breath, is done with quarter circle forward to down, down back, forward and strong punch and quick kick. Big Bear's a fun giant to mess around with, and I'm so thankful his normal, non-special moves are good enough and satisfying to hit with because I was disappointed in his specials. The super drop kick is just not worth holding a button down that long, and the giant bomb felt like it covered too short a distance to be worth the charging as well. I really like the idea of the wrestler having his face and heel personas be their own thing depending on his role in the story. The only downside is that I feel his Raiden persona is much stronger visually with the mask. That and I think Raiden's brighter blue colour scheme looked better. I think my biggest issue with Big Bear's design is the hair. This is clearly just a balding man clinging to the tiny bits he has left and refusing to accept he'll look a lot better just letting it go and shaving those stragglers off. I like his stage. The giant touring truck with his name and the audience with all the bikers really sells this guy's attitude. And something I never considered is that he keeps his theme from the first game, and since the other returning characters all got new themes, this makes Big Bear's theme the only music track from the original Fatal Fury to return in Fatal Fury 2. Even when we get 3 more returnees in the update, only one of those comes with the returning theme. Now it's time for the new characters, so I think it's best to start with the most well known and iconic of them, Mai Shiranui. Mai is the granddaughter of Hanzo Shiranui who taught her ninjutsu. Hanzo was also Andy's master when Andy trained in Japan for 10 years before the first game. Despite not caring much about Andy at first, she warmed up to him after he gave her a birthday present once and is now desperately in love with him. She is constantly trying to start a relationship with him, but while Andy does return her feelings to an extent, he's still too obsessed with completing his training first before committing. Even her presence at this tournament is another attempt to get Andy to settle down with her. For her moves, her Kacho-sen is quarter circle forward and punch. The Ryuembu is quarter circle back and punch. Her Hisatsu Shinobi Bachi is half circle forward and kick. Only usable on her own stage is the Musababi no Mai with charge down up and strong punch. Her super special move is the Cho Hisatsu Shinobi Bachi, done with forward, down back, forward and quick kick and strong punch. This is one of the easy ones to pull off when you figure out the timing, and I used it a lot. Mai's fine, both in terms of gameplay and just as a character. She's entertaining, but even after over 30 fighting game appearances, that's all I can say about her, she's quite basic. As tacky as it is to suggest that a character is only popular and only appears so much for their looks, there are many characters who've been in far less games and have had more stuff going on to talk about. I think the issue is that the only story they gave her is pursuing Andy, and then they never continued with that and just repeated it every game until KOF 14 about 25 years later. Had they finally let Andy and Mai get together much earlier, there'd probably be more to say about this character. But as she is now, she's just fine. I like her, even more than other mainstays like Joe, but SNK just has so many characters I like more. Were I to compare her to the other first women of fighting game franchises I've looked at, she's no Chun-Li, but still far above the boring Sonya and Nina. As for her stage, it's another one I really like. I'm impressed with all these scrolling stages, especially in 1992. That's one way to set yourself apart from Street Fighter 2 after the other ways they'd made this game closer to it than the first. Her theme is fine too, not quite what I was expecting for such a high energy character, but it is only her first appearance, much of that hadn't come about yet. Next is another character who will become a mainstay, Kim Kapwan. Kim is a Taekwondo World Champion, which is what led to him receiving an invitation for the tournament. Kim is a strict teacher at his dojo and has a very strong sense of justice, despising evil of any kind. This isn't shown that much at this point, but as he continues to appear, this part of his character is going to be greatly exaggerated. For his moves, he has the Hangetsu-zan with quarter circle back and kick, there's the Hien-zan with charge down up and kick, and the move I like a lot, the Hishokyak by pressing down and kick while in the air. His super special move is the Horokyak with quarter circle back, down back, forward and both kick buttons. Kim was the most fun character in this game for me. I've played games with him before but never really touched him before until I had to for this video. His moves are easy enough to pull off, and that Hishokyak is so good when you keep pulling it off fast enough whenever an opponent jumps. I even managed a perfect against this game's AI with Kim. Personality wise, there isn't much to say about Kim just yet, but as he continues to appear, the zealous side of him keeps growing and growing to comical levels. I must say it is weird to see him not appear in a mainline KOF with him missing in 15. But now watch him be announced as DLC in the month and a half between me making this video on the 27th of May 2022 and it going live. His stage is in Seoul and it's a nice looking one, but the star of this stage is the music. Kim has by far my favourite theme in this game. Now for another new character, and one who never survived past this game and its update, Jubei Yamada. Once an incredibly skilled judo warrior nicknamed the Demon in his youth, Jubei now just lazes about his dojo eating cookies and hanging out with Hanzo Shiranui. His friendship with Hanzo also means he's been involved in training Mai in the past as well. In fact, he helped Mai complete her training when Hanzo started to focus more on Andy. Most likely his past reputation is what got him a tournament invite. Other fun facts, because we're not going to get another chance to talk about him. By the time this video goes out, he will have turned 100 years old, being born on July 7th, 2022, and his favourite kind of music is Eurobeat. For his moveset, charge back, forward and punch is the Senbei Shuriken that I cannot see as anything else but a pizza. His Nihon Seoi dash is charge back, forward and kick. His Oizuna Otoshi is charge down, up and punch. Annoyingly, I could only pull off his super special move while obscured by the scenery in his stage. The Dynamite Izuni Otoshi is done with charge down back, down, down forward and quick kick and strong punch. Jubei was the least fun character in the game for me. Most of his moves being charge moves made them a pain in the arse for me to pull off. Added to that, his moves just seemed garbage to me and very easily countered by the game's AI. As for Jubei as a character, I also don't have much to say. I like his existence for the way it expands the cast and adds a few more character ties with him being a friend of Mai's father and having trained her. But his role is to be the new old guy to replace Tung Fu Ru, and Tung just has a lot more going for him. Tung has his hulking out abilities while Jubei throws weird pizzas. I get why Jubei has never appeared after this, I think he is the weakest addition. But at the same time, I do wish he'd get a second chance, they all deserve one. I'd love for SNK to do their own take on Mortal Kombat Deception and make a game with a roster made mostly of the 1 and 2 shot characters like Jubei and Richard and Michael. I like his stage quite a bit, with all the art we can smash through when changing lanes that then reveal the even nicer background behind them. His theme is fine too. Last character of the playable cast is Cheng Shinzan. Cheng is another student of Tung Fu Ru, and trained under him at the same time as Jeff Bogard and Geese Howard, and they were collectively known as the Three Brothers of Godly Battle. He grew up in poverty, which is what may have led to the circumstances behind his expulsion from Tung's school, when he started making money through rigged bets on illegal street fights. He since became an incredibly wealthy businessman and gained friends and connections with other rich people. This is what led to him hearing rumours about the tournament host from the Chinese Mafia. He enters in the hopes of gaining publicity taking this guy down and using the fame to start his own dojo. He has the Kirai Ho with quarter circle forward and punch, the Dai Taiko Barauchi with charge down, up and punch, and the Hagangeki with charge back, forward and kick. His super special move, the Bakurai Ho, is done with charge down back, down, forward and quick kick and strong punch. Despite the charge moves, I had a lot of fun with Cheng. He reminds me of the Proto Bob from Tekken, being the fat guy who's still very speedy and acrobatic. I also like him for being this totally unthreatening looking guy, looking like just some dude and making strange noises when he fights, but he's actually the third in a powerful trio with the main character's dad and the series' main villain. Tung comes across as a bad judge of character though. Of his three best pupils in the old days, one becomes a crime lord and the other becomes basically Wario. I really like Cheng's stage, all bright and colourful with loads to look at. I also like the bits of English too. Sea Pals, Jumbo. Nice music too. And that's the full playable roster. A nice selection I'd say, 4 returning characters, 2 new characters that were going to be icons and mainstays, 1 that will reappear a few more times, and just 1 that I would call a weak addition. Now let's talk about that arcade playthrough. After defeating the first half of the cast, we get a bonus stage where I have to jump between lanes on Joe's stage, destroying the pillars that drop down. Then when I defeat the other half, I have to do so again but on the first boss's stage where there's only 1 lane. Once we defeat the playable 8, we start getting short scenes before battle. First off we see Hua Jai and Michael Max laying defeated at the feet of the tournament organiser. Michael in particular just got knocked out of fighting game rosters forever. This leads into our first boss and only returning one from the first game, Billy Khan. I won't go into too much detail on the bosses apart from story and the experience of fighting them, as I'd like to have something to say about them when I cover their playable roles next video in Fatal Fury Special. With Geese's death, Billy and his sister moved back to England, where he wound up working for the tournament organiser. This tournament is Billy's chance to get revenge on Terry for the death of his father figure. Billy can be a total bastard to face. Thanks to his staff and the moves included with it, he has huge range and can poke away your health from a distance. Try to approach him and he has moves to deal with that too. That staff spinning move is especially bad for out-prioritising everything and the AI pulling off as an instant reaction to most things. After defeating Billy, we next see that the host has taken down Duck King and Tung Fu Rue as well. We then move on to a second boss, Axel Hawk. Axel used to be a heavyweight boxing champion, but decided to retire before he could pick up all the health problems the sport could lead to. But then he was discovered by the tournament host and hired to be one of his 3 defenders. He also really loves his mum, isn't that nice? Axel is more brutal than Billy. He doesn't have the range, but instead he has brute strength and surprising speed. He can just destroy you in no time. He and Billy are tied for me in terms of frustration. If I had an easy time with one, the other would be an arsehole. But when I do take down Axel, we get to see that the host has defeated Richard in his own cafe. But first we had the final sub-boss, Lawrence Blood. An incredibly famous bullfighter, his training had been supported by the tournament host since a young age, as the host had strong ties to Lawrence's family. In return, Lawrence becomes the host's bodyguard. So like how Billy was the only truly loyal henchman of Geese, Lawrence is the only truly loyal henchman of this game's boss. But while there are some times I had problems with him, I found Lawrence to be the easiest of the bosses. Either he's just not as aggressive or his moves are far easier to counter than Billy's or Axel's. I do find it interesting that the 3 bosses before the main villain all share some kind of theme with the Street Fighter 2 bosses. We have a former champion returning from the first game for revenge, a giant boxer, and a Spanish matador type who wields a bladed weapon. I'm sure it was unintentional, as Billy especially is nothing like Sagat in any other way. It was just something I noticed. After defeating Lawrence, we finally get to meet the mysterious tournament host who's been tearing up the missing cast from the first game, Wolfgang Krauser. Krauser is the current Earl of Stroheim. 40 years ago, his father Rudolf, who was a champion fighter himself, fell in love with the granddaughter of the then current Earl. When Krauser's mother became pregnant with him, Rudolf abandoned the wife and son he had in America to stay with her. It turns out that son that Rudolf abandoned was Geese, making Krauser and Geese half-brothers. When Krauser was 9, a 15-year-old Geese tried to assassinate Rudolf, blaming his absence for his mother's death from illness. But Krauser defeated Geese and almost killed him, making him the one person Geese feared. By the time Rudolf became head of the family, Krauser's mother Elsa died, drinking herself to death after realising Rudolf still loved Geese's mother over her. So on his 16th birthday, the day after his mother's funeral, Krauser challenged Rudolf to a duel and killed him to become Earl. And for one last bit of backstory, the scar on Krauser's head is from a fight he had with Jeff Bogard and Hanzo Shiranui shortly after he killed Rudolf. So he's been about a bit. When Krauser learned of his half-brother's death, he became curious and decided to fund the next tournament with the intention of facing his killer himself. Krauser is a total bastard to fight. He's not quite as hard as Geese in the first game simply for the reason Krauser doesn't have Geese's counter that works and everything, but take away the counter and Krauser is harder in every other way. He's really tall and that gives his attacks incredible range, especially those kicks. Plus his super special move has the biggest projectile in the game. If we're comparing the difficulty of fighting game bosses we've looked at so far on this show, I'd say he's harder than Mr. Karate, M. Bison, Shang Tsung, Shao Kahn and Heihachi. But Street Fighter 1 Sagat, Geese and specifically Arcade Tekken 2 Devil were harder than him. I'll have more to say about these bosses next video, so let's just get on with this. As a reminder, you must not lose a round to get the endings. Terry celebrates his victory eating at the Pow Pow Cafe with this woman fawning over him, who I'm certain had a name, but I don't remember it. She's never going to be important anyway, as next game introduces Terry's actual love interest. Andy just stares wistfully while Terry secretly checks out his brother's ass, and Jeff Bogard's voice is telling his sons to live manly. Joe checks in on Hua Jai in the hospital, having avenged his defeat, and keeps him entertained by singing for him. Big Bear, feeling no one else is a challenge, wants a rematch against Terry after his defeat in the first game. Mai, filled with confidence from her victory, decides to make Andy her disciple. Kim forces Krauser to reform and live an honest life, something he's going to take to insane levels as Kim continues to appear. Jubei gains the adoration of many young women, but despite being the stereotypical lecherous old master, he eventually finds it annoying. Finally, Chen gets the fame and money to make his own dojo a reality. So there's Fatal Fury 2. This game was a huge improvement over the original. It plays better, it looks better, it has more than 3 playable characters. My only real complaint apart from the AI is locking endings behind never losing. That's a dick move. In fact, if we're still comparing it to Street Fighter 2, I prefer vanilla Fatal Fury 2 to vanilla Street Fighter 2, but it doesn't quite reach the heights of its updates, and it also has vanilla SF2's problem when it comes to the rankings in that there's an updated release that is literally just this game but more. So for me, this original version is more of a curiosity, as I'm more likely to go for Fatal Fury Special, which we'll be looking at next video.